Hi everyone, it's sweetpea-sky. And today I'm showing you a speed paint of one of my Christmas cards that will be releasing in the shop at the start of December. So I'm going off script for this because I wanted it to sound a little more natural, and also I was going to be talking about like some personal experiences with Christmas, my process. Here you can already see that I've got kind of the base sketch and color already laid down. I'm just trying to find basically the shapes within the sketch right now. So trying to find the shape of the feathers, the shape of the bird, the shape of the nest. I'm already adding in some details here. Sometimes I like to add in details. It helps motivate me with the entire sketch because every painting, even digital painting, goes through like an ugly phase where you're like looking at the painting and you're like, I absolutely hate this. This is the worst thing in the world. And then you add in a few details and you're like, oh, well, it's not so bad after all. So I'm just doing the feathers for the raven character here, blocking out the eyes, adding in some dimension with some lighter colors. I wanted this to have a bit more of a cartoony feel, I suppose. Whenever I got Christmas cards, they would always traditionally be kind of like nature or animal themed. A few of them were also like, you know, typical Christmas trees, Santa, but I always really liked the ones where they had like the old-fashioned ones where they were like the little woodland animals that would have like presents or gifts or very what's her name, Beatrix Potter, is that the name? I can't remember, but a very old-fashioned kind of British author who wrote a lot about fairy tale animals in the woods. And as I said, one of my inspirations for this, a great series, honestly, if you're into kind of whimsical horror or folk tales or fairy tales, I'd really recommend you give it a watch. But Over the Garden Wall, it's a fantastic series. It's inspired me a lot. Here you can see that I'm putting down some of the feathers onto the robin, just mapping it out. I knew I wanted to do a mixture of line art and paint, because to me traditionally cards tend to be more line art than painted. But as I was saying before, the more fashion ones tend to be more painterly. I don't know. I was trying to go for a mix between the two. I was pretty unsure about the concept from the start because I said, drawing birds, drawing nature, it's not my forte. I love drawing people. I love drawing emotions. The human condition just fascinates me, really. So that's where the majority of my art comes from. So for me, this was actually a big challenge to try and, first of all, create like a feather base. Oh, here, I'm just putting in the nest. But to create a feather base, it's quite difficult. There's so many different layers to worry about. But here I'm just figuring out how I want to do the nest. I knew I wanted sort of like a twig-like nest. I was just focusing on like what brush to choose, and then I got like straight into it. The great thing about digital art is you have so many brushes at your disposal. It's insane. Even just the base brushes that I use in my art program here in Krita, they're so useful. I feel like I can get so many different textures, ones that I would have to really either buy a different brush to replicate in real life or destroy my brush, because I have done that before in pursuit of a certain texture. So thankfully my brushes are safe for me for now while I continue my foray into digital art. And honestly, while I do love traditional art and I love the feeling of it, I love the pencil and paper, the lines, the texture, digital art definitely has a special place in my heart for just how accessible it is for the normal person, you know. Even before I got my tablet, I was doing art with a mouse, And here you can see that I'm putting some traditional plants around here. Traditional plants for Christmas, I should say. So like holly and mistletoe. Just again, mapping out the shapes. You'll see me doing that a lot because I consider it one of the most important parts of painting. You need to be able to map out the different shapes to even get a grip on like light, shadow, color, whatever. It's just how my brain works. For me, if I don't get the shape right, then everything else falls apart. And I'm just filling in the holly here. I knew that I wanted it to be kind of translucent because holly has that weird like shine to it. Just because I believe that the plant fiber is so smooth and tough, you know. Oh yeah, you can see that I'm thickening up the feathers a little bit here, but I ended up not doing this. I think I ended up scrapping most of this. God, the robin gave me so much trouble. You'll notice that I'll be working on them a lot just because I couldn't figure out how I wanted the feathers. They have the hardest shapes. I think the raven was definitely easier for me. I love the kind of big, soft, round, fluffy shapes of the feather. And while the robin is round and fluffy, I wanted their feathers to be more angular. I actually came up with kind of like a personality for these two. They kind of give me old married couple vibes. That was the kind of idea that I was going for, that these guys were nesting up for the winter, as I think many of us do over Christmas. We huddle up with our families and hold them close, and this is what they're doing. They've created this beautiful nest for themselves, safe from the snow, and now they're going to go hibernate for winter, even though I know robins and ravens don't hibernate. Okay, but that's just my idea of what was going on here. And I think that the raven is maybe a very relaxed kind of bird. They like just chilling, talking with their raven friends whenever they get the chance. Is it a group of crows or ravens that's called a murder? I think it's a group of crows that's called a murder. What's a group of ravens? Like a roost? Or a flock? Isn't it a flock of ravens? I'm sure it's something like that. I don't know the name, sorry, for a collection of robins though, but I feel like my robin here, they're pretty mischievous. They actually take up most of the drawing, but you can see their little tail feathers sticking out here at the end, because, like me, they like taking up most of the bed. Anybody who's in a relationship, you know what I'm talking about, okay? And also, sorry for my voice. I've had a cold, as is typical in winter. I've had a cold over the past few days. It's been mainly affecting my throat, which is why this video has been a bit delayed. You know, doing voiceovers while sick isn't exactly fun. But, you know, we persevere, we live and we learn. And, you know, I knew I was going to do it. I was like, I'm not going to delay this voiceover any longer. I feel like it's a disservice to people who like my content, you know. It's because I said, you know, this video would probably get released at the end of the week, and now it's Monday. Nobody's harder on myself than me, apart from maybe my mother. But you can see that I'm just adding, this was one of my favorite parts, and it was kind of by complete accident. I was just kind of playing around with light and shadow, and I ended up creating this beautiful like sheen on the feathers. God, I love it so much. It's like, remember when you see pigeons in the park and they've got that kind of like beautiful, like those breast feathers where it's all shiny with like green and purple, all those shimmery, what's the name, those iridescent colors. That's what I was going for here too. It was a bit out of the blue, but I think it ended up looking really good. So here I'm just kind of working down the details. I tend to overwork my stuff, so sometimes I need to take away, like for example, I felt like here the line work was really overcrowding the birds. I felt like the line work was too big and chunky, so here I'm just slimming it down. I mean, you can let me know if you preferred the line art more chunky, but to me I didn't want the focus to be on the line art. I wanted it to be more on the feathers. So you can see there I'm just trimming it down. It was pretty thick in the beginning, obviously because I was just sketching it out. But when you get to this point where you're like, okay, I'm pretty happy with the colors, I'm pretty happy with the rest of the sketch, now let's start taking away stuff. I feel like people don't really talk about this in art, taking away things, I guess. Because people always think, oh, what can I do to add more to my art? But I feel like I've always had the opposite problem, where I'm like, what can I take away? And that's always been the case. When I was in school and I was like writing stuff, I always overwrote. I always had to edit back. And I feel the same way about my art. I think Christmas is a very special time for everyone, regardless, I think, of who you or what you worship. I think Christmas is very commercial at this point. It's driven by consumer products and buying things. It's a massive time of year for companies, you know. So I feel like even if you worship different religions, and my family is multi-religious, we still all ended up celebrating Christmas together. And I remember me and my brother and sister were crazy about Christmas. One time when we were little kids, we woke my parents up at like 4 a.m., 5 a.m. And even for my parents on Christmas, that was too early. They sent us back to bed, and then we got up at a more reasonable time, I think about 6 or 7 a.m. We were always so excited for Christmas. We would run down. There would be a bunch of presents on the sofa. We would rip them open. My mom would be desperate to take pictures for memories. My dad would have a big bin bag that all the wrapping would get put into. I think one of my funniest Christmas presents I ever got was a pogo stick. Because I never used it. I just wanted it because I saw it in something. And I was, funnily enough, a very shy, quiet kid. I didn't like getting hurt. I didn't like going hunting and stuff. So I don't know why I asked for a pogo stick. But it didn't get used. Let's just say that. Oh, and here I'm just adding more definition to the feathers, giving them basically making them up to the same standard as the ravens. Adding in the kind of feathers are really hard, so hard to render for me, because it's not even like fur. You'll see in my next squirrel card, the one that I'm going to do for Christmas, a red squirrel, very Scottish. Completely lost my train of thought. It happens. And I'm recording this in the early morning as well, so I have enough time to edit it before I'm putting it out today. But anyways, I felt like the feathers, yeah, that was it. Feathers is much harder to do than fur, because there's a lot more light bouncing off, there's a lot more layers. Well, like, fur kind of comes in chunks, and then you only really need to render where the fur meets different sections of fur. With feathers, I really had no idea. I'm not gonna lie. I've never drawn a feathery character before. I've drawn birds before, but not to this detail. So this really was like a new thing for me. And here you can see I'm filling in the berries. These were actually one of my favorite parts to do, not gonna lie. You can see that I'm adding in some shading now to the plants. I didn't really find this too hard. This was much easier, I think, than doing the birds. You can see I'm adding in like the quote-unquote veins of the plant. Isn't it called like a phylum or xylem or something? I don't know. It's been so long since I've done biology. I think I was like 16 or something the last time I did biology. So now we're really going on to detail work here. Just filling in the little details, because, I mean, looking at it, the majority of it's pretty much finished. The rendering is done. So all I really need to do now is render in the little details that were missed. Because when rendering is basically the process of making your drawing come to life, I think is the best way of saying it. You know, like for example, if for anybody who paints traditionally, you put down all the blocks of color first, and then once you've done that, then you can get into all the good stuff. That's basically the rendering. Especially because my process is very painterly whenever I do digital art. Oh, and I'm adding nice little golden feathers across the robin. Honestly, robins really do seem the perfect color for gold. Red, brown, and white, they all go super well with gold. So I felt like it just makes sense. And see, now I'm adding the light and shadow to the berries. So I'm adding the kind of white scribbles, because berries are very bright, they're very shiny. So it just makes sense that they might have a sheer white. You'll notice that most of the time I don't highlight with a sheer white, and the reason for that is because it can actually make your drawing look more flat. If you look at most shines on things, it may look white, but as you get closer, you'll see it's more reflecting either a surface light from nearby, or it's reflecting its own light. The earth does this too, interestingly enough. That's why the sky is blue, by the way, because we reflect our light off the oceans. If our oceans were red, our sky would be red. That's a pretty crazy thought, right? If the water was any other different colors, so would be the sky. And you can see here that I'm shading, but I'm not shading in a darker red. I'm actually shading in like a brown. And again, it's the idea of color theory, that when you look at shadows, it doesn't tend to be a darker version of the color, although this can depend as well. This is the annoying thing about art. There's so many rules, but every rule has like an exception to it. In fact, sorry, that's my throat going there, but in fact, I would even say that a lot of the rules contradict themselves. I've used bright whites for highlights, I've used black for shadows, although I don't do it often, just because it can make your drawing look light and flatless. You know, I'm not classically trained artist, but I have done a lot of research on these kinds of things. And I'm adding in some pine needles and stuff now. Again, very traditionally Christmassy, you know, for literally anyone who has Christmas trees. Although, if you don't, obviously, depending on the country you're in, you might not be able to obtain a Christmas tree. When I lived in the Middle East, I think we had like a fake one. Obviously, you couldn't get a real one, they just don't grow in that kind of climate. Plus, it's a Muslim country, so obviously Christmas wasn't as commercially viable there, but obviously we still celebrated it. And again, I'm just trying to, this took me a while to figure out, because I wanted a kind of outside layer for the nest, but I wasn't quite sure. I was like, should it be brown? But then I started putting the brown, I was like, I hate it. It doesn't look too bad now looking back on it, but I was really unhappy with it. I also noticed that there were lots of bits around the birds to fill in, like you can see there's like empty white sections where that background was peeking through. I wanted to try and darken that bit up so it looked like they were kind of sitting on top of the nest almost. So it took me a while to figure that out. First I kind of went in with this like dark chalky brush, and I'm just kind of brushing through around each of the birds to look like that they're sitting there. I think I end up going back and forth on this like a bunch of times before I figure out that I'm gonna put a layer below the birds, fill that in with dark brown. You can see there I'm trying to figure out how I want to do this, like what's the best way to fill it in. And then once I've done that, you'll see in a minute that I figure out that I want the outside to be snow. But before we get to that point, you can see that I'm just strengthening the lines of the bird. It is a Christmas card after all, it has to be readable. Even though I feel like the lines across the beak were too big, I would say that the outside lines needed to be bigger. So that was an executive decision made by me. We'll see if it pays off. And again, just shading the parts that are meant to be shaded. The brown that I'm using here, interestingly, is like a dark, super saturated brown. It's actually quite grey. It's quite greyish. And here, this is what I'm finally figuring out. This is why I want to put the snow. And honestly, I think the snow really made it come together. 100%. Like, it's so wintry, you know? So classic. So I knew that as soon as I put it down, I felt like I had made the right decision. I was like, okay, this is what I want. So I just kind of went for it. I put snow on top. This is just me fixing up the tail feathers. They were so messy. And I was like, oh, can't deal with that. Needs to look perfect. I am a perfectionist. So you can see I'm just going back and filling in all those little extra details that were missed. Honestly, perfectionism is actually something that I've been trying to do less of in my art. I found that obviously you need a balance. You can't ignore certain details, but at the same time, I actually think perfectionism can definitely be an enemy of art, especially when you're making it for yourself. Oh, look at the little icicles on the tail. But especially when you're making it for yourself, if you are so worried about your art always being perfect, you're never going to create it. It's like procrastination. The more you worry about it, the less you'll do. So at some point, you've just got to say, oh, whatever, I'm just going to make it. Who cares if anybody likes it? But obviously, because this is going to be more commercial, I needed to go over the certain areas that were more visible. But honestly, I'm really proud of myself for this piece of art. I am, because this was so outside my wheelhouse, and yet I was able to make something that I was happy with, something that I wanted to give to people. I think that's huge. I think that's massive. I'm still learning every day, but at the same time, I'm still really proud of myself for being able to create these things and being able to sell them to people. And I know that recently, you know, things haven't been the best with that, with the whole trouble with Etsy and everything, but I feel like it's really just strengthened my resolve. God, I love that blue color. So I keep interrupting what I'm saying about the art, but I really do love my art, and if you're making art, you should love it, I think. But that beautiful sky color, you know, when the sun's low in the sky, but it's still daytime, and it's like this gorgeous blue. I love that color so much. So I'm just adding in the final details of snow here, and then we're basically pretty much done with the entire thing. You can see I'm just adding the final details, making sure that everything's up to scratch before I finish up. So thank you everybody for listening to my ramblings, and I hope that you really like this Christmas card. I'm really proud of it myself. This will probably be the only speed paint video I'm posting for the Christmas card, but I'm expecting the final design to come out later this week, so I will be letting people know. I'll post on my social media the final design, and then will be letting people know about when it's being manufactured. So I'm really excited. Never done Christmas stuff before, but I'm really excited to see how it will turn out. So that's the end of the video. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!